I represent Georgia's 4th Congressional District. I have been in office for the last, this is my 6th term. I represent the 4th District, which consists of much of DeKalb County, a little small slither of Gwinnett County. I've got half of Newton County and all of Rockdale County. And I want to thank all of you all for entrusting me with this job that I do here in Washington, D.C. as your congressman. While in Congress, I have been serving on the Judiciary Committee since I came to Congress, and I was recently elected to be the top Democrat on the Judiciary Subcommittee known as the Courts, Intellectual Property, and Internet Subcommittee. That subcommittee has jurisdiction over the U.S. courts, judicial ethics, patents, copyrights, trademark law, and also information technology as well as the Internet. So it's a pretty important subcommittee. And I also serve as a senior member on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I formerly served on the House Armed Services Committee for my first 10 years while I was here in Congress, so gained a lot of expertise on that side as well. I'm a former criminal defense attorney and judge, and I was 12 years as a judge and 27 years in private practice before I came to Congress. I was a small businessman, basically. From the time that I got out of college, I started my own practice and survived and prospered for 27 years as a small business person. I'm pretty proud of that. Now, a lot has happened since our last call, so I wanted to circle back and make sure that I hear from you about the issues on your mind. And so, again, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, press *3. To be placed in the line to be heard. And in the event that you're unable to ask your question, once again, please stay on the line after the call and leave your question in the voicemail box, and we'll do our best to get back in touch with you within the week or so. So at this time, I'm going to take my first caller. Patricia Harris is on the line from Stone Mountain. Patricia Harris. Are you on the line? Patricia Harris? Going
Hello?
once. Yes. Patricia
Yes.
Harris?
Yes, Congressman Johnson.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. How can I help you tonight?
Well, you had asked, what are some things that we want you to focus your attention on for the rest of the year? And one of the things that I would like help with is I noticed that President Trump had mentioned that he would be working on getting the cost of prescription medications down, and I just think that that's going to be a major effort. I myself I'm with Blue Cross, and I am in a donut hole. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but my diabetes medicine for my insulin has jumped the price from $42 a month for 2 meds to $300 a piece. So that's $684, and I can't pay that out of pocket. So I haven't been able to take my insulin, and and I've tried to put everything on credit cards, max my credit cards out just to buy food and medicine. So if you could do anything, I appreciate the work that you do in our district. I always vote for you. You're doing a fantastic job in Washington. I'm on the Facebook, so I keep up with what you're doing. But if you could do anything for your constituency, I know I'm not the only one. Anything that you can do also, I go to Oakhurst Medical Center, and that's another issue to make sure that these community centers stay open. There are so many people who really need them. And so those are my two concerns.
Okay, well, I appreciate your feedback, Patricia, and yeah, I think it's criminal that as we proceed in the Trump administration, that drug manufacturers, the pharmacy benefit coordinators, and others who have a hand in pricing of drugs have seen the okay for them to just, just increase the cost of their medications just exorbitantly.
Absolutely.
That's probably about 12 times. Your insulin costs have gone up 12 times from what they once were, and
Right. I
that
can
is
afford it.
that is truly ridiculous. It's criminal, and it's heartbreaking because people are suffering as a result of not being able to have their medication in sufficient quantities to maintain a healthy and active life. And talk is cheap in terms of wanting to rein in the price of prescription drugs, but as the drug costs exponentially go up, there is got to be some suspicion that you're saying one thing and you're doing another, or you're not doing.
Absolutely.
This is a terrible situation. One of the things that Congress can do is to pass a law that removes the handcuffs from the federal government being able to negotiate prices with the drug companies, and that is something that leads to Medicare and Medicaid overpayments for certain medications, a growing list of medications. That's one thing we can do, and there are also there are many other things that we can do to force down the cost of these prescription drugs, and to enforce laws already on the books that would punish folks for taking advantage of the least of these. And so, yeah, when you're busy trying to deconstruct the federal government and defund oversight and investigations done in the executive branch, this deregulation, push for deregulation, this is what results. And so the people need to wake up, understand what's happening, see the writing on the wall. Don't listen to what folks are saying, but actually see what they're doing, and then exercise your right to vote accordingly. And so I'll tell you, Ms. Harris, you may want to you may want to reach out to my district office. The number is 770-987-2291. Speak with my office to determine whether or not in your particular situation there is something that we can do to help you get a lower price on that very necessary drug.
Okay. Give me the number again, Congressman.
It's 770-987-2291.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be happy to call.
All right, and take care of your health.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate what you're doing in our community.
All right. Thank you for your support also.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, next we have Mr. Leonard Kendall from Lithonia. Mr. Kendall, are you on the line?
How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I just want to know why I don't think y'all, the Congress and the Democrats, doing enough to get Donald Duck about the White House. We got all kind of ethics violations, and what are y'all doing to try to get him out of there, number one? And what can you do for our area? Lithonia, I still have Panola Road area is for us getting our people here from the CEO all the way down to work on our infrastructure, building it up and getting it looking better. We got potholes everywhere. On our side of town, you go to the northern side of town, it's a whole different story. So no sidewalks, no nothing. So it's like you just voting for people that ain't about doing nothing for us. So that's my two questions I have for you.
Okay. All right. Well, let me take the last issue first, which is infrastructure in South DeKalb County. For many years, South DeKalb was neglected, and when I became a commissioner back in 2001, Vernon Jones became the CEO. Burrell Ellis took office at that time, and also Lew Walker, the late and great Lew Walker, took office. And at that time, we made a determination that we were going to do what it takes in order to equalize the treatment that the south side of the county should receive. And so that has been progressing all the way to this point. So we've added, you've seen under, now this is the Mike Thurman administration. So you've seen under 3 administrations now sidewalks going in South DeKalb. You've seen some potholes being filled. You've seen a lot of things. You've seen libraries. You've seen the Lew Walker Center for seniors. You've seen the Exchange Park. You've seen I'm trying to think of the other commissioner's name, and the facility right down Rainbow, named after him, the Performing Arts Facility. You know where I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but that still ain't helping us.
So you've seen a lot of improvement with parks, green space acquisition, sidewalks, potholes, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and I'm glad that DeKalb County passed that 1 cent SPLOST tax back in November. Those funds are coming in as we speak, and so there'll be a lot more money dedicated to road paving. And so I think we're coming along in terms of infrastructure. We certainly do need to address other issues that would facilitate more businesses locating to the to South DeKalb County. And I think you have great folks on the county commission who are working on that as we speak. As far as removing President Trump, it takes if there were to be an impeachment, it would take a majority of the members of the House of Representatives to vote to impeach, and then the case would move to the Senate. And in the Senate, you would need a 2/3 majority of the senators in order to convict and remove the president from office. So that's a pretty high bar. I don't think that the evidence, the hard evidence, is there to proceed towards impeachment in the House of Representatives at this time. And indeed, if there were some Republican who, and the Republicans do control the House of Representatives, they control what comes to the floor. If there was a Republican willing to, if the Republican leadership were willing to put an impeachment resolution on the House floor, then it would probably have a good chance of passage. But so long as you have Republicans in control of the House of Representatives, I don't think it's likely that that's going to happen. And so what we're left to do is to await the findings of the Mueller investigation. And I think what we here in Congress have been doing is doing our best to protect that investigation, protect Mueller from being fired, and we are enabling him to go about his investigation. That investigation will at some point conclude, and when it does, we'll get a final report, and that report will then hopefully be released to the public. It'll be a full report, although although it's not mandated in the law that it be a full report, but we in Congress will be insisting that it be a full report and released to the public so that the public can understand what happened in the run-up towards the 2016 presidential election, whether or not the Trump administration or anybody in that campaign was colluding or conspiring with the Russians, because we do know Russians influenced the campaign. And so the question is whether or not there was any collusion or conspiracy that involved Trump and or members of his administration, and whether or not that there's been any obstruction of justice by the president and anybody else in his administration in terms of trying to obstruct that investigation. So once we have Mueller's report, we'll have evidence, we'll know, or we'll at least know what evidence we have, and Congress will then be in a position to take whatever action it takes. But I believe that regardless of what the Mueller investigation concludes, if we have the current setup in Congress, you won't see any action taken on it, because thus far Congress has not done anything to hold this administration accountable for what we know happened. And so I'm not really expecting anything from this administration. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Criminal charges could even arise out of the Mueller investigation for the president. But as you know, the president just appointed another Supreme Court justice, and that justice will stand for confirmation before the Senate within the next few months. And that the guy that he chose, Matt Kavanaugh, has already issued writings that would indicate that he is not on board with any effort to hold the president accountable while he's the president. And so that's something that we're going to have to deal with. But I hope I've answered your question, Mr. Kendall, and I hope you have a nice evening.
Thank you for having my clip. I don't think DeKalb County, especially our area, is doing enough for us. We're paying our taxes like everybody else. We're supposed to be the second within the top 5 blackest, richest county in the United States. And we still paying our taxes, but the money's still going up north to the other people, and we ain't getting nothing done. I don't see no improvement. I've been here for 20 years now. I haven't seen anything done. It's still getting worse. Everything is getting a lot worse. Thank you anyway for your answer, and you have a great day.
Okay, I appreciate it, and help is on the way, or I should say more help is on the way. You'll be seeing more happening in South DeKalb as that SPLOST money is spent to repave roads and lay in sidewalks. So thank you very much. Next on the line, and before I go any further, I would like to remind everybody, if you've got a question or want to make a comment, press *3. And before we take this next question, I also want to open it up for a little poll that everybody can take. I'd like to ask all of you to participate in this poll, and what you need to do is to press 1. Follow my directions. So I want to ask the question first. What are your thoughts on President Trump's pick for the U.S. Supreme Court? Press 1 if you're happy and think the president's pick is a good pick. Press 2 if you're not happy about that pick. And press 3 if you have no opinion. So in other words, question is, what are your thoughts on President Trump's pick for the U.S. Supreme Court? Press 1 if you're happy with the pick. Press 2 if you're not happy with the pick. and press 3 if you have no opinion. And we'll collect those and tell you what the result is before we hang up the call today. Next, I've got Mr. Caleb Pilgrim on the line, and I want to turn it over to you, Mr. Pilgrim.
Congressman, thank you very much. And first of all, let me say also I appreciate the work that you have been doing relative to the modifying of the grand jury, which continues to be a very serious problem in terms of respecting the civil rights of blacks and browns and other minorities in this country. So in terms of the grand jury, certainly thank you very much. Vis-a-vis the new Justice Kavanaugh of the U.S. On the U.S.'s nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court, I think that, by and large, this is more of the same, and it's a great tragedy that our former President Obama did not find it possible to appoint a black woman justice to the Supreme Court, given the shifting demographics and the enduring. So those of us in New Haven, and I'm also a graduate of the Yale Law School, found it kind of troubling that our president did not, and even fumbled the issue with respect to his nominee, who the Republicans actually held back. My comment today rather has to do also with the problems of immigrant children, where I find that the Trump administration has been violating the rights of children under the International Convention of the Rights of the Child, the International Convention dealing with immigrants. And I would like you to push that issue, because today is the day when children under 5 should be reunited. They should never have been separated. And then the other issue, the final issue, is that I heard you loudly and clearly relative to impeachment. And I wonder what will happen in terms, they did impeach President Clinton on very flimsy grounds. And why not, if the Democrats actually gain a majority in November in the House, should we forego this as possibly a serious option, given the dodgy money which the Clinton cabinet and his campaign, going back to Manafort and the others, have been so liable for? Make a legal U-turn. Those are my comments.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you on that grand jury reform bill. It's an important bill that would require the appointment of a special prosecutor to conduct and lead the investigation into crimes involving police officers on duty, and then present those results of the investigation to a judge in a public probable cause hearing. And that would go a long way towards putting some transparency in the process when you have people being killed by police officers, oftentimes unarmed, and oftentimes under circumstances that justify more than just a closure to the investigation. So thank you for your awareness of that piece of legislation that I hope to one day get passed. When it comes to the U.S. Supreme Court nomination by President Obama that was held up by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell until after the election, I think that what we should be doing is enforcing the McConnell rule. We are less than 4 months away from an election where the Senate can change hands, and just as they refused to hold a hearing on President Obama's pick until after the election, and that went for about a year. That went for a long period of time before the election. just as we held back, we should hold back these next 3 months from confirming this new pick to the U.S. Supreme Court to give the citizens the ability to weigh in on what kind of Senate they want to be in place before we confirm a U.S. Supreme Court justice for a lifetime on the bench. So as far as the immigrant children and the child separations, the courts have already, well, the courts have not, but President Trump himself has issued a executive order stopping that practice. And as far as we know, the child separations have stopped. And so they're no longer separating children at the border. And the issue now becomes, how do we reunite the 3,000 or so children who were separated at the border from their parents? How do we reunite those children with their parents? And so that issue has been taken up by the courts. The court decided that children below the age of 5 should have been returned to their parents by today. And so far we've only had, I think, somewhere between 30 and 40 reunifications. And so that means the other children who are 5 or less have not been reunited, and so the administration is technically in breach of the, or soon will be technically in breach of the court's order, and we'll see what happens as a result of that. And meanwhile, there's another deadline that they must meet, the Trump administration must meet, to get all of these children reunified with their parents, but it appears that they don't have the ability to do that, and that's something that is heartless. It's something that they just didn't care about, and it's a black mark on this nation that we would have people coming into this country seeking status that would allow them to stay because they're being oppressed and murdered, raped if they go back, or if they remain. Those are the things that drove them here, and so they come here seeking relief, and we won't even let our law apply to them. That is what the Trump administration is guilty of, and that continues to this day. And so even though it may be in violation of international statutes or international law, who's going to apply it to the most powerful nation on earth at a time when this nation is pulling away from various treaties and various organizations that are international organizations that are in place to govern the affairs of world nations. So this is really a dark time in the history of America, and one that the American voters have the ability to change. And so I thank you for your comments, Mr. Pilgrim. And next, I've got looks like poll results on that question. Are you happy with the Supreme Court pick by this president? 9% of you said that you were happy with it. 16% you had no opinion, and 75% are not happy about that pick. So our next caller is Mr. King. And Mr. King, are you on the line? Okay, is Mr. King on the line? Okay, we'll wait for. Or is it Mrs. King?
Right. Maud King, Maudeking.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Mrs. King. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thank you for just taking my call, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for DeKalb County. But my main question, one of my questions you've already answered, but it's about Bert Kavanaugh. I certainly am against that pick that Trump chose, and I want you and all the other Democrats and see if you can get some people from the other side to vote him down. You talked about him earlier, so we won't spend much more time on that. But I know you are going to do all you can to vote him down. Is that right?
Oh, well, I tell you, he has to be. That nomination has to be confirmed by the Senate.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
So there will be nothing that the House can do in terms of our work. But I'm certainly going to use my voice to make it known that I do not support this nominee, and I'm hopeful that as many people as can hear me speaking will call your senators and will let your senators know that you disagree with this pick and you think that it should not be considered until after the elections are over.
Well, that is the truth. Now, my other question is, it's mainly a comment. The $4.3 million doing that when DeKalb voted for that East Splotch 4 money on May, I think it was 24, 2016. Well, DeKalb received $4.3 million, and a part of that money was supposed to go to build a performing arts an auditorium for DeKalb Elementary School of Arts. And so we're still waiting to see them get started on that auditorium. So I want you to do all you can to encourage Dr. Green and everybody else involved, Superintendent Dr. Green and everybody else involved, to get going with that auditorium that's at DeKalb Elementary School of the Arts at that old 3131 Old Rock Bridge Road at Avondale Estates, Georgia. So.
Yeah, you know, the school system under the leadership of Dr. Green took the city of Atlanta to court because the city of Atlanta annexed some land, basically Emory University and some of the land around it, and it took away from the tax base of the DeKalb County school system without taking away very many students at all. So they got more money than was due to them based on that annexation, and Dr. Green took it to court, and the court last week, I believe, issued an injunction to prevent that loss of funding into the coffers of the DeKalb County school system, which is going to help ensure that the plans that are already in place and the funding that's already in place is not disturbed whatsoever. So I want to applaud our school board and our school superintendent for taking that action and protecting the taxpayers of DeKalb County. And, of course, we will be waiting and watching for them to do what they have said that they're going to do with the funding that they have. So I appreciate that, Ms. King, and appreciate your call. And I wish you a very happy tonight. And thank you very much. Next, we have Ms. Barbara Duncan on the phone. And Ms. Duncan, are you there?
I am. I'm here.
Okay. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Great.
Hope you're doing fine. I had a question with the DIC money that military wives get. There's a House Bill number 4106 and a Senate Bill 1990 that have been up for some time that would add an amount of money to our DIC. That doesn't
the
seem
VIC,
to be
V as in Victor?
No, D, ABCD. DIC.
Uh-huh.
It's money that is given to military wives through their husbands. That is a bill, and it's cut back because of, I think, with Social Security, why they've cut it back to a certain amount. You get your Social Security or you get that, and so they don't seem to be interested in passing the bills. But it would add money to our income by a little bit. They were going to do it in increments to add the money that they've been taking away back to our income, which would be good if the bills would get passed. And the House bill is 4106. The Senate bill is 1990.
Okay.
So
I'm going to look into HR 4106, and let me say that first, thank you for your service to the nation in enabling and supporting your loved one as they served. That was your husband?
Yes, it was.
Okay, well, thank you so much for you all's sacrifice and for your service to the nation. And we frankly can't do enough to repay the debt of gratitude that we owe to you. And we certainly should not take away from the things that we promised you, that you relied upon, and that you are owed. And so that's my basic philosophy about our veterans and their families. And so I'll look into HR 4106 and see what we can do to support it.
I would appreciate that very much. And if you
Okay.
can do anything about the insurance, because my son's insurance went up terribly with this last signing up for insurance. The Blue Cross Blue Shield left Georgia and dropped him, and his insurance has gone quite high. And he has a lot of medical expenses.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, when it passed, it had the effect of stopping the exorbitant double-digit increases in premiums that were coming every year. And so until the time that Republicans in Congress started killing the Affordable Care Act, and that began last year, that began when they had a Republican president. They were able to take steps to kill it. They weren't strong enough to pass legislation that repealed it, and they certainly had nothing to replace it with. But ever since their efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act failed, they and President Trump have been doing everything they could to destabilize the Affordable Care Act. So that has brought back the double-digit increases in premium costs, and it has also resulted in insurers leaving some markets. And so that's something that we're going to have to correct, because people are hurting. People are dropping out of insurance because they can't afford it. And pretty soon, if they keep killing it, then people with pre-existing conditions are not going to be able to get insurance, because insurance companies will start denying them they'll start denying coverage. And so we just simply can't let that happen. We have too many people in this country who have pre-existing conditions, and that should not ban them from getting help for their medical conditions. And so that was one great thing about the Affordable Care Act, was mandating that people who had pre-existing conditions could be covered, and they would have an opportunity to have affordable premiums. And that's what we've had. But since they've destabilized the markets, we're back to double-digit price increases. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to stop it and try to create an Affordable Care Act that was even better than the one that they're trying to kill. So I thank you so much, Ms. Duncan, for your call. Next, I've got Ms. Amy Waite, who's on the phone. Ms. Waite. Okay. She asked the question online. Okay. She is concerned about the environment and the EPA. Well, the President Trump does not believe that human beings are doing anything to cause climate change, and so until we can get someone at the very top who understands that fossil fuel emissions, which are man-made, contribute and cause climate change, and climate change is negative, not positive, until we have a president that is willing to execute congressional policies, we will continue to degrade our environment. And as long as we have people who control Congress who support that president in his denial of human influence on our climate, then we will continue to degrade our climate. I'm happy to report that the guy who used to head the EPA, Scott Pruitt, resigned last week amid a swirling cloud of, or a mushrooming cloud of controversy that implicated the swamp that was not being drained. He was a big part of that swamp. He manifested that swamp as he did his best to deregulate the controls on entities that are large polluters to our environment. And so I'm happy to see him gone. I don't normally say that about people, but I'm happy to see him gone because he did a heck of a job hurting our ability to protect our environment. And I look forward to a time where we can get back on track in terms of protecting our environment, because we're leaving air and water quality for our children, children's children, their children, and all generations who are coming after that. And so we have a responsibility to leave the place as clean as possible for them coming along in future years. And those are the policies that I certainly support. So I want to thank Amy Waite for the online question. Next, we have Stacey Harris. Stacey Harris, you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you, Congressman Johnson. I am a longtime resident of South DeKalb, 35 years plus. I'm a homeowner. I live in the Meadowbrook Glen community, and I also have a rental property that is in the recently annexed Stonecrest area. And I have seen a decline in services over this last year. I've reached out to our CEO, Mr. Thurman, to try to get some resolve. You know, there's some potholes and things that haven't been fixed. So I would just, want to say that to say I hope that you continue to work with the leadership in DeKalb to make sure that our services are up to par, because I have seen a decline. They used to be a lot more responsive. I don't know what's happened, but as of late, they have not been as responsive. My second question and comment I have for you is I'm a healthcare consultant. I have a small business, and I do healthcare consulting. And you mentioned about the dismantling of the Affordable Care Act by this current administration. And what is the Democratic message around that? I don't hear you guys screaming and yelling about the things that they're doing to the Affordable Care Act to cause premiums to increase. I would think that that would be something that all the Democrats across the country would be up in arms about, and I just don't hear a lot of that going on. So I want you, to tell us what's your strategy, what is the Democratic message? I mean, we've been focused on the Russia investigation and all the stuff that the current administration is doing, and I get that, but now I want to hear my Democrats tell us what the message is, why we should vote for the Democrats, why we should stay engaged, and what is the plan to counteract some of the things that this current administration is doing.
Well, I tell you, Democrats fight hard against what is happening in our nation and the policies of the Trump administration and those who support the Trump administration, and that's basically the Republicans who control Congress. We speak out against it, regularly. We have our plan of action, what we will accomplish if we regain control of the House of Representatives. But, of course, you have to have, it takes a House and a Senate to agree on legislation, which is then sent to the President, who has a veto pen. And and if the President vetoes the legislation that's passed, then, we can override it by 3/5 majority. And so you have to have those kinds of circumstances in place in order to pass legislation. So that messaging on the legislation that we would pass is one thing that we talk about all the time, but you never hear about. Reason why is because Democrats don't control the media, and what the media reports is what you, and basically TV and radio, what you hear and see. You see nothing other than Trump and tweets and Russia, and that's it. You might see a little bit every once in a while about the soccer team in Thailand and whether or not they have been saved or not, and but you don't hear a lot about other things that are happening in the world, and our media focuses on, I guess, what they feel folks want to hear, and that is about Trump. And so you've got to dig deeper than listening to the radio and watching TV in order to find out what Democrats are saying and doing in Congress. But keep in mind that Democrats don't control the House, they don't control the Senate, and they don't control the presidency, and they certainly don't control the judicial branch of government, the third branch of government. So it's kind of like we're being shut out, and so it's going to take extra effort on the parts of folks like you to find out. But I think you can conclude that whatever they're doing, we're going to be doing something different, and something that will help people as opposed to corporations and rich people. So you can bet on that. So I want to thank you for your call, and we're running out of time, so the last call I'm able to take is from Ms. Amiha Thomas. Ms. Thomas, you on the phone? Miss Amelia Thomas, I'm sorry.
I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you do. One thing I wanted to do was just make a comment. President Trump patted himself on the back about the big, wonderful tax break that we would all get. Well, I'm still working. I'm a senior, and I'm still working part-time. And in my paycheck, I saw a $32 increase. My telephone bill has gone up, my electricity has gone up, my water bill, and, of course, gas for the car. So everything he gave me, he took it back. So I just want to say that I'm just thoroughly disgusted with him. When I hear his name, or if he's going to be on television, I go to another station. It's horrible, and seniors are not getting anything out of the deal.
Well, the fact is, and thank you for your call, Ms. Thomas, the tax cut that was passed benefited 83% of the tax cut benefited the top 1% and the multinational corporations, and only 4% of workers, and you being one of that 4%, were able to detect any increase in your wage. And so you ended up getting $32 added to your check, but you're only one of 4% who noticed the change. I mean, they promised that this was going to be a middle-class tax cut, but it was everything other than a middle-class tax cut. It was actually 86% of the middle-class people who are in the flow of commerce at this point are going to receive a tax increase in the last years of this 10-year tax cut period. So 83% of the money went to the top 1%, and 86% of the people are going to get a tax increase. If that's not a giant shift of wealth away from working people into the hands of those who already were rich and didn't need it, I don't know what else could stand for a greater shift of wealth. And so that's something that I'm sorry that it happened, but we will have to do what we have to do in order to clean that up.